Greetings, my friend. You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we are bringing you the full story of what happened. We are giving you all the evidence, based only on the secret testimony of the miserable souls who survived this terrifying ordeal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Eisner, and welcome to the Medfield College Film Society Tower of Terror 6. You never know when it's going to drop and when it's going to go up. It's really great. It's completely randomized. These Medfield guys, they love Touchstone. They asked me to come on and do their Touchstone spooky Halloween special. So, of course, I said yes, because I am Michael Eisner. I am the face of Touchstone Pictures. But enough about me. I'd like to introduce the members of this film society. First, I want to introduce a living legend. He lives on the other side of town. He stays up until all hours of the night. Sometimes he calls me and needs me to come over, but it's worth it to see him light up your podcast feed. It's the other Michael, no, not my brother. I share names with him, so of course. It's the other Michael Crawford. Michael, nice to meet you. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's an honor, sir. It's just an honor to be here in your presence.
Yeah, I know it is.
Will you sign my handwich?
I will sign your handwich. Okay, here's the muscle of the group. The guy who could move folks around in the paint. He was always running into doors and eating whole chickens. Mr. Big Andy Brown. Andy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Mr. Eisner. It's a pleasure to meet you here.
It's good to meet you. Guys, I'm doing a thing where your characters from the movie. You're supposed to act like him. Oh, I thought that's what that's about. There we go. Thank you. And the director tonight, a guy who loves Hollywood almost as much as me, Michael Eisner, of course. He's always running the show here and moving everyone along, never to be missed without his giant megaphone. It's Mr. Robert McSwain. Robert, how are you doing? Welcome to your podcast.
Lights, action, camera. I have this great idea. So it's called Martians from Space. And it's going to be Martians flying around, and they're going to come down, and they're going to kidnap people, and then they're going to take off their clothes and run around. It's going to be crazy.
Sell toys. That's a pretty good idea. Or have a theme park attraction.
Will it show crack? Blah. I got here late. What do you want?
Blah, blah, blah.
We'll
Let's
have
crack.
a meeting. We'll have lunch. We'll get Jeffrey in it. But speaking of Jeffries, here is the other guy, Jeff Crawford. Oh, gee, thanks, Mr. Eisner. Hello. It's a spooky Halloween special. Hello. Okay, thank you. Gosh, thanks so much for coming up onto the podcast. Hello. Oh, wow. Guys,
Woody,
what a treat to have Michael DeMan Eisner here on the podcast for Halloween. I haven't been into spooky season that much in the past decade, but now that I've got kids, it's a good time for spooky season. That's right. That's where you get. Do you all have your costumes picked and everything ready to go?
Yeah. I mean, I sleep in a tuxedo and a cape every night.
There's...
Yeah. Okay. Nobody else. Okay. Just think, let's just jump to this movie. What are we watching, Michael?
Well, we're watching the 1994 Touchstone classic Ed Wood, directed by one Tim Burton, written by Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski? I don't know. And it's based on a book by Rudolph Gray about the real life of director Ed Wood Jr. This movie stars a lot of people. Stars Johnny Depp. Thankfully, in his days before he was Johnny Depp. Stars Martin Landau in an Oscar-winning role. Sarah Jessica Parker, Patricia Arquette, Jeffrey Jones, and Bill Murray. Bill Murray gets the "and" at the end. So a very fun cast for this movie. This movie was, these guys came up with this idea when they were in film school and were just kind of kicking it around, and had pitched it to someone they had gone to school with who was a director, and he had worked with Tim Burton's partner, so it wound up working its way until Tim Burton's hands. Anyway, Tim Burton wound up directing it. So, and then no other studio wanted to make it because it was going to be in black and white. But then Michael Eisner said hello, and it went to Touchstone.
I loved black and white movies back in New York. When I was a kid, we would watch black and white. Silver screen. Hello.
Every summer at camp, we would put up a screen and watch
off everyone's faces.
So yeah, it made its way to Touchstone and became critically acclaimed. It was not a big box office success, but it was a big critical.
I remember these trailers playing on TV all the time, and being really amazing. It was also the same time that we moved to Winston-Salem and got Comedy Central and thus Mystery Science Theater. So we became familiar with the movies right around the same time this came out.
Yes, you are absolutely right. I hadn't even put two and two together with that. But yeah, so by the time it came out, we knew who Ed Wood was. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
In fact, later, Mystery Science Theater guys, who became Riff Track guys, did a live riffing of Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is an Ed Wood film.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember seeing that one live. Yeah, I was in the Fathom Events Theater.
I think I did that too. It was, they did it at Halloween, didn't they? Maybe.
Wow, guys.
So, yeah.
I think so. I think I did that too. Yeah, and the Mads, Frank Conniff and Trace Beaulieu, did Glenn or Glenda on their. It's online. They did it streaming during pandemic. So his oeuvre has been well covered for sure.
Guys who has seen Ed Wood before, I had not actually, and I had always wanted to.
I had not either.
Oh, I had seen it. I remember. Okay, let me back up. I wasn't really into Tim Burton, or I wasn't into Johnny Depp. I didn't really know much. All I knew was somebody won an Oscar for this film, and then there was a lot of critical praise. That's all I knew. And this was like, I don't know. So it came out in '94. So I mean, that's, good grief, that's 30 years ago. And so, but I remember something like that happening, and so I watched it, and I remember at the time, I didn't know I didn't really care for it. I think it was like it just went right over my head. I missed everything. I was like, wow, that guy's weird. What's going on with all this? And I feel 100% differently about it now. We can talk about it, but yeah, when I first saw it, I was not a fan.
Yeah. Well, I'll echo off of that because I had not seen it. And I knew very little about it until about a month or two ago, when I started doing my research on it a little bit. At the time, the reason I missed it, I was not a Tim Burton
After
fan.
Batman Returns?
I've grown. Even after Batman Returns, that's what killed it. No, but I wasn't a Johnny Depp fan either, so it didn't really turn me on to go see it when it came out. And then I just missed it all these times. I've grown to appreciate Tim Burton. Still not a big Johnny Depp.
It's hard to remember,
but,
before the kind of Velvet Room Johnny Depp showed up, the Benny and June Johnny Depp that existed at this point in time.
Yes.
It was a different vibe, but
he's kind of whimsical, not quite as
a modern day Chaplin,
greasy.
Perhaps.
See, I my first introduction to Johnny Depp was not like Nightmare on Elm Street or 21 Jump Street. It was it was a movie he did called Crybaby with John Waters.
Right.
Which is funny because it's very almost Ed Wood adjacent in a way. But see, that was my first introduction to Johnny Depp, and but even in this though, when I saw him in this afterwards, I didn't care for it. But again, I feel differently now.
It's funny you mentioned that because I read somewhere that Johnny Depp wanted to do this, agreed to do it because he had become an Ed Wood fan thanks to John Waters showing him Ed Wood
There you
movies.
go.
So
wow.
it all ties together.
There you go. Well, anything else to say before we kick this off? Well,
No,
let's
I'm
go
ready.
into the world of Ed Wood.
Guys, something's wrong here. This Touchstone logo is all gray grainy. And it gets struck by lightning and reveals its signature, whatever that is. I don't know what's it's the little thing, the little slashes through it. But
The zap.
you get some dynamic music cues, kind of dun dun dun, and the music continues.
And what's nice though is you don't hear the Touchstone song or the little music cue.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
It's the
Yeah,
music.
They
of
took
the
that out.
movie. Yeah.
Because I would have taken, I would have, I think, yeah, you're right. I would have taken us out of it, I think. But sort of setting the tone here. The music continues, and we have a wailing voice as the camera pushes into a scary house being illuminated by lightning. We push in on a window that slowly opens, revealing a coffin in a room. It opens, and out of it rises a man in a tuxedo. He breaks down the fourth wall and speaks directly into the camera. Oh, the horror, Andy. Did this bother you?
No, because it's clearly meant to be this way instead of like right in the middle of a movie.
Call
They wink at
time out.
the camera. Yeah.
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 Yeah, the Zach Morris effect.
The Zach Morris effect. Gotcha. All right. So the character monologues about the story that is about to be told. And it is shocking and comes from testimony, yada, yada, yada. And it's all about Ed D. Wood Jr.
Which is, and that whole segment's based off of some very similar in Plan 9 from Outer Space.
It's
Mhm.
also
It's kind of
incredibly done in
lifted
this
that.
movie. A great little fake outside, right outside the window and everything. It's very of the time. It's
Yes.
portraying. Wonderful.
Yeah, and
So
the intro music,
good.
I
So
love
good.
it. I mean, this this almost tiki exotica kind of thing happening,
Mhm.
and Howard
Mhm.
Shore doing the music. Very
Yes.
different.
Wonderful.
Usually
I
it's Danny
had meant to
Elfman.
mention his name. Yeah. They had a falling out with Tim Burton had a falling out with Danny Elfman after, I believe, Batman Returns, and so got Howard Shore to do it. So Lord of the Rings and that's quite a range.
The camera pushes into the window behind the coffin, and the opening credits roll. And we've already answered my next question, which is how are we feeling so far? I mean, I'm kind of pulled in. Andy's pulled in. It sounds like everyone's kind of,
Fantastic.
feeling this now.
Oh yeah, they got me.
Yeah, and the
So
practical
good.
models. I mean, 'cause
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Yeah.
so beautifully done.
I just thought it was funny that there's stuff in these credits that's supposed to be cheesy, but is still fancier than anything in any
Right.
Ed Wood movie. It's like, well, he would love to have that effect. It looks so much better.
Camera pushes past gravestones, marking the actors who appear in the movie. It then goes underwater to follow an octopus. It comes out of the water to flying saucers going by, finally revealing the famed Hollywood sign and a
Just
miniature
so
set of
amazing.
Hollywood.
This model has shades of the HBO intro from the 80s. This,
Yes. Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
We settle on a building soaked in rain as a man paces back and forth, and the sign reads, "The Casual Company." And out busts Bill Murray in a bright-colored suit. He informs the gentleman, played by Johnny Depp, that they can't hold the curtain any longer. Depp says, "What am I going to tell the cast? It's press night, and we don't have any press." We cut to a stage where two soldiers sit on a dimly lit stage, giving lines to a somewhat empty house that is also leaking water.
And one of the guy, he's from Hook, right? I think he was one of the kids from the Lost Boys from Hook.
Oh, he may have been.
Yeah,
Wasn't he like
think
Doogie
you're right.
Howser's friend on Doogie Howser?
He was Doogie Howser's
Maybe
friend.
that might have been it. Yeah. Then the other guy's Tic Tac guy from Seinfeld.
Yeah, it's Lou. Lou from Seinfeld.
Oh.
Yeah. He also, the guy on the right from Doogie Howser, he was also in The Sopranos
Quite
as
tune
well.
shift.
Had a small
Whoa.
role in The Sopranos for a couple of seasons. Yeah.
Really?
So Depp is now backstage, and he's reciting lines as the stage actors deliver them, and down floats Sarah Jessica Parker as an angel. At the after party, which consists of a small table and a dark bar with 4 people around it, Depp is congratulating the cast. In runs a man who has the reviews hot off the press. They quickly read the review, and their faces sink, and as it is revealed that the play was a bomb.
Yeah, this is great. I
love
what they say
her,
about each
like,
actor.
Awkward hanging from the ceiling with the,
Yeah.
I bring you the dove of peace or whatever. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny.
In the review, though, I like what they say that Sarah Jessica Parker has the line that says, do I really look like do I really have the face of a horse? And I was like,
Yes.
I wonder if that's where the whole thing started, because that was always the insult against her. Is she has the face of a horse. And
I thought that was something too. I was like, wow, that's subtext.
yeah,
So that night, Depp, who, as we know now, is Ed Wood, is in bed with Sarah Jessica Parker, and he's questioning if he's got it or not. Parker gets up and notices she can't find her pink sweater, to which Ed rolls over in an attempt to ignore her.
and it's also, let's say that this is 1952. Let's establish that as well.
So out on the following day on the movie backlot, Ed is working in the props department, and he's walking by the sound stages carrying a small palm tree. He stumbles onto a live set with real camels and is called into a film room where an old man is showing Ed stock footage. He dreams of being able to use the stock footage and make his own movie out of it.
This whole scene with the walking through the studio lot gave me big end of Pee-wee's Big Adventure vibes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Tim Burton must be
yes.
like really into like studio backlot excitement,
Have you guys ever walked through a backlot anywhere?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you do?
Oh, well, at Disney. At the
Disney?
Disney
Okay.
studio. Yeah.
Jeff,
I mean,
Robert,
I've
have you
also
done
been
that?
to the Disney studio, but
I have not been on a true backlot, no.
Oh, it's a cool feeling.
Yeah. You always expect to see like cowboys and
a
astronauts.
lot of
and
trades. Yeah.
whatever, just kind of standing around smoking. Yeah.
I was on the Warner Brother.
Oh,
backlot,
yeah.
so that was just cool seeing all those stages.
That's a great tour over there that they do. That's awesome.
Yeah, but just going through the buildings, I mean, it just like you said though, it just gives you there's a feeling to it. I think,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like knowing that
totally.
behind those doors, magic's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Ed delivers a plant to an office where 2 ladies are reading a variety. It's about a biopic. And the title of the story is, I think I have this wrong. I think I wrote it down. It's Boy to Chick, Click to Click. Is that correct?
Close enough.
I don't know.
Okay, close enough. So I think I was writing this stuff so fast. I think I missed it. But anyway, the title of the story is about somebody who's changing from, I think, a boy to a girl, transgender person. Ed has his girlfriend fake as if she's his secretary in an attempt to fool the producer, and that he is, in fact, a big-time director. He manages to get a sit-down with the producer with the ruse that he pulled with his girlfriend, Sarah Jessica Parker. Wood arrives at the producer's office. A large, foul-mouthed man sits at the desk eating a Reuben sandwich. Informs Ed that he didn't get the rights to the story, so he's going to fictionalize it and call it "I Changed My Sex."
And this guy is playing a character who was like a real guy, because I had recognized him in the movie. I think it's George Weiss or something like that.
George Weiss.
Yeah, there's a movie that was also a Mystery Science Theater called Racket Girls, which is about ladies wrestling. And it is produced by this guy. And there's a credit, like his title credit on the movie is like in fancy handwriting, like he signed his, they're like, "We salute you, George Weiss, for the willingness to put your fantasies on screen." So I was like, hey, it's George Weiss. It's amazing.
So Ed's realizing that he's not winning Weiss, the producer, over, says he's perfect for the job because he likes to wear women's clothing. He knows what it's like to live with a secret and be afraid to tell other people and be found out. But Weiss still passes on him. Ed is in a bar and leaves dejected and passes by a mortuary and sees a man in a coffin, presumably dead. Suddenly he wakes, and it's Bela Lugosi. Ed approaches Lugosi and says he's a big fan and is quickly dismissed by Bela. He chases him down the street. Bela says he's looking for a coffin because he intends to die soon. Wood finally offers him a ride after Bela finds out that he doesn't have his bus transfer. So Bella's on some hard times here.
What did you guys think of Johnny Depp's like smile and like his whole demeanor?
It's super. I mean, like I find it amusing, but it's also super weird.
It's very weird.
Just his,
yes.
I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Slightly
I
pained,
agree. I mean,
maybe it's one way to describe it.
Because he kind of brings it back when he does Willy Wonka. It's a similar kind of that smile. It's like
it's
smile,
just kind of like a half. I mean, it's like a smile that doesn't go to his eyes,
right?
Almost, you know. It's just sort of it's happening in the corners of his mouth and not in his eyes.
Wild.
If that makes any sense.
And it's so different than, you know, his typical, what you normally see him as, you know, that, I don't know. I guess I just think of what's the pirate he is, Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a completely on the other side of the spectrum from Jack Sparrow. And I think he does it's creepy, but in a way it's funny. And it really does give his character a personality for sure.
Definitely. How are we feeling about Bela here? About Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi?
Incredible.
I think, I mean, unbelievable how good he is.
I had never realized, and I noticed in the credits that Rick Baker did like the prosthetic makeup, like the great Rick Baker. So I was like, so he was in good hands. But Martin Landau always makes me laugh because it just makes me think of when the first Mission Impossible movie came out, and he was invited because he was in the show. And Kennedy from MTV was interviewing him. And she was like, so why are you here? You're old. Or, you know, just giving this thing. And like he tore into her very much like Bela with the, it was brilliant. That's what I was thinking. That was his finest hour.
Oh, Kennedy.
Yeah,
you tearing Kennedy a new one. Yeah.
Yeah, with Rick Baker, though, I seem to remember like there was something about he wanted to do this because he heard that Landau was going to be playing the role of Bela Lugosi, and Rick Baker was such a Bela Lugosi fan because of Dracula, and he was afraid that any other makeup artist would not do him justice, would go too far, make him look ridiculous, and he wanted to make him as close to as possible. So
that's awesome. That's great.
So Ed finds out that Hollywood has chewed up Bela and spit him out, and he's not working anymore. They arrive at a small patio home, and Ed and Bella remember the glory days of early Hollywood and the horror pictures that were produced at the time. Ed offers to meet him again, and he reciprocates. He barges into a home and tells his girlfriend about meeting Bella. And at work, he's telling his coworkers about Lugosi and his dream of working with him. And his coworkers are just less impressed. They're just like, "Oh, great, that guy."
Yeah, they're like, "Isn't he a junkie?" That's what I think one of them says. Like,
yes,
right.
Yeah.
Kind of
he
known.
says, ask him if he's a junkie. So kind of alluded to that early in the first act. Back at Lugosi's house, they're watching one of the old movies and is interrupted by an Elvira parody, which actually, vice versa, Elvira parodied her. Who interjects.
Pre-Elvira.
Yeah, Vampire.
Way pre-Elvira.
Vampira. And I found out later that she sued Elvira.
And didn't win,
Mhm.
which, I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like she should have won.
Which blows
Yes.
my mind. Yes.
Yeah. So Vampira keeps interjecting into the movie, which frustrates Ed and Bella. And Bella he's quite taken by her. Bella is, and starts to motion towards her on the TV in an effort to put her unto his spell, while Wood mimics his moves.
You know, something that really strikes me about black and white films is how you really have to, because you can't really play with the color palette, you've got to play with the light palette. And I think
Yes.
they did that amazingly in this film. I mean,
Yes,
already
they
in
did.
what we've seen so far, because they're sitting in a dark room with the TV on, and how
Yes,
they lit that and show it. I mean,
There's
it's
some
unbelievable.
real lighting moments in this movie. I just kept thinking of Robert, because Robert knows his lighting, man. Some
I was very impressed. And you're right, Andy. Lighting a black and white movie is extraordinarily difficult. So whoever was their lighting director, he should have gotten an Academy Award.
The first time I thought about it in this movie, and I just thought about when you were talking about, is the scene earlier when Ed is in the bedroom and she's looking for her sweater and he turns to the camera.
Yeah.
Like it's really, really dark. Like usually in movies, they light things even when it's supposed to be dark, obviously. But it's really dark. And you can just see just a little light like glinting in his eyes as he like turns to the camera. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So Bella gets up and leaves to go get his medicine with some brilliant
that
silhouette
was
shots.
another one.
Looks through the
Yeah, it's
medicine
just
cabinet.
amazing. It's just like the backdrop of everything.
So this is like where I'm starting going, okay, Tim Burton is like firing on all cylinders here, because this is some really good shots here he's coming up with. He emerges re-energized. As the doorbell rings, he throws on a cape, and we find out it's Halloween. He lunges out of the door with fake teeth, and two of the three children flee. The third one dismisses Bella as fraud. Dejected, Wood jumps out and reveals that he does not have his front teeth. It scares the kids off, and we find out that he lost his front teeth in World War II.
I mean, I assume that was a true
then-
story. It's just too weird to.
I would assume so, yeah.
Too weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know he was in the army, so I don't know about all that, but
One would think that's just
yeah.
And then earlier when he's telling that producer, he says, he's like, "Yeah, I fought in World War II while wearing women's underwear the entire time."
Yes.
He was just hoping, because he was afraid that, if you ever got hurt, the medics would find out his secret.
Mhm. He's
was
like,
like,
I parachuted into wherever in panties. He's like, okay.
And he was in the Marines,
The
by the way. Ed Wood was.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Man.
The following day, Wood is back at Weiss's office trying to convince him to put Bela Lugosi in his movie. Weiss reluctantly agrees and allows Wood to develop a movie in 3 days with Bela attached to it. Back at his apartment, he's typing away while talking on the phone. He says he needs all the transsexuals he can find. He wants his film to have realism. Bella comes in and is excited to be attached to the movie, but Bella overhears Wood asking for transvestites and is concerned.
But I love
Ed
how
says
he's
it's
like, what kind of a movie are you making? Because he's like, I want all the transvestites and transsexuals you can find.
I need him.
Ed says he was looking for people who have two sides, and the the sides they show to the world and the side that they have hidden from society. Bella says it's like Jekyll and Hyde, and he's way on board now. Ed shows his girlfriend the script, and he shoos her off to read it immediately. She slowly goes through it and is shocked by the story. She opens the door and finds Wood dressed in women's clothing and realizes that Ed is the one stealing her sweaters. And she's a little less than thrilled by it. Yeah. But he offers her a part in the movie, and she sort of warms up now. So we cut to Bill Murray's character addressing a room full of transvestites. And Bill Murray is brilliant in this. He is so good.
He's like peak Bill Murray.
Yeah, I read that his role wasn't supposed to be very big. It was supposed to be kind of small. And he was so good that they just kept giving him more stuff and giving him more lines because he just kept knocking it out of the park.
He's hungry. It's really good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the proto Wes Anderson Bill Murray.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like him like getting his training wheels off for Wes Anderson stuff. Wood is in Weiss's off. What's that?
I was going to say, what would have Bill Murray been in during this time? Is this like Groundhog Day?
Or is this like What About Bob era?
Right. Yeah, What About Bob and Groundhog Day? Yeah, are all about the same time, early to mid 90s.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I was like, I didn't know if it was. Groundhog Day was 93. And What About Bob was 91. He followed this up with Kingpin. Ernie McCracken.
But this guy that he's playing, Bunny Breckenridge, lived into his 90s, into the 1990s or early aughts. I can't remember. But I looked him up. He had a fascinating life. So everybody should look him up because it was pretty wild.
Wood is in Weiss's office, and he's not thrilled by the story. Is demanding that Wood get to the action, so to speak, sooner. He finally agrees to greenlight the film and tells him to just keep it in 7 reels long. On set, Wood gathers his crew while wearing women's clothing. They set up for the first shot, and it's cut short when the cops drive by, and they don't have a permit, and they just flee. On the soundstage, Bella arrives, and Ed tries to hype him up the crew, who's less than thrilled by Bella's appearance. Wood preps Bella for the shooting schedule of the day, and he asks him for his money up front. As they do makeup, the makeup artist notices hypodermic needle tracks, and we find out that Bella is in fact dealing with a drug problem.
Yes,
that was pretty rough. Earlier. That was rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say I love all the like worn out crew that all these people that they cast for his crew just like the most worn out old dudes ever.
It was like sitting around.
They're great.
Cuts to shots of them like reacting. It's great.
Yeah.
They don't seem like actors at all. It feels like they really did pull those guys off of the set somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
The actor from the play earlier, who we mentioned was Lou from Seinfeld, and approaches Bella and wants his autograph. He obliges, but is turned off when he mentions Boris Karloff. Wood calms him down, and they roll cameras. And Bella delivers his lines. Beware! Take care! Beware! Pull the string!
I just started thinking of Pull the String earlier today and just started laughing. It's so good. Pull the string. Oh, so good.
Ed is parading around in women's clothing, and his girlfriend Dolores is, again, less than pleased. She's having a little trouble accepting this part of him. In their scene, Dolores takes off her sweater and hands it over to Wood for his big climax. And then we cut, print, and that's a wrap. And that is a wrap of Act 1.
real life person. She was like a songwriter.
She wrote Rockahula for Elvis.
Yes.
Hula.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So she went on to have a pretty, successful
That's that
career.
mailbox money, man. Well, we fade into a studio backlot again. Ed is pulling up in a smoking car to see a Mr. Feldman. Robert, did you catch the car for us?
I did not catch the car, but I don't love that it was they always had a shot of the steam coming out of the radiator.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
Zoom V8 then.
It is a Zoom V8. I think it got like worse as the movie went on. Like I seemed to notice, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it's like every time it showed it, it was like a little worse for wear, which if intentional, that was kind of brilliant.
So Andy, I know Jeff is not a Sopranos fan. I don't know about Michael.
I'm an unknown. Not
You don't hate it. You just haven't committed to it.
I'm a noob.
Okay.
That's right.
Did you catch the security guard?
Yeah, I
at
knew
the
exactly
gate?
who it was as I saw it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Vito Spatafor. All right.
Well, Wood is sent to an executive building and goes to see a Mr. Feldman. What an office this is, and what lighting this is too. It's just like dark wood paneling, lovely. Ed brings in some reels of film, says he's going to give this executive a first crack at this film he shot for Screen Classics. Executive asks Ed what's up next for him, and Ed says he has a whole slate of films. The Vampires 2, The Ghoul Goes West, and Dr. Acula.
The Ghoul Goes West is the one that cracked me up.
I mean,
I would watch
watch
that. I would be all about that.
I was trying to remember the name of those movies back when I was doing my little monologue at the top of the episode. I'm completely blank, but yeah, that's
The
great.
Ghoul Goes West. Feldman says he does not like those ideas. Well, Ed starts pitching another one called The Bride of the Atom. And Feldman says, atomic stuff, huh? I like it. Later, Feldman is in the screening room watching the real Ed is doing and sees Ed in his cashmere and thinks it is an elaborate prank. He's just dying laughing because he thinks that he's putting it on because it's so bad.
Let's say the
And
footage
this
of
is
like
some-
Bella that fades into the buffalo stampeding.
Yeah.
Like this is brilliant.
great.
Actually, it's art. It's amazing.
Cut to Ed stopping at a newsstand and picking up a paper, looking for some ink, but he can't find any ads for his latest film. He calls Screen Classics, and Georgie says the movie's playing in Alabama because no one wants to see it again. And he ever sees Ed again, he's going to kill him.
So this is the second time I was like taken aback by Tim Burton's camera work here, like just the angles he was using when they're on the phones, talking to each other back and forth between Weiss and is it Georgie? Yeah, Georgie and Wood. But yeah,
Good stuff.
wanted to throw that in there.
Yes.
I mean, I guess I kind of hate that I didn't watch this earlier in my life because, especially like in
Yeah.
college when I was way into like film stuff at that point.
Yeah,
But-
didn't do it.
Yeah, I'm surprised maybe a professor didn't even mention it to you.
Yeah, nobody did. Like we were watching. We watched Spinal Tap in one of our classes. What was that, Andy? There was a movie we had to watch for something, and we had to go down to the art house rental place to get it.
Oh man,
What was it? It was some like real deep cut.
Well, I just love that they make a movie about a filmmaker, and like compared to Tim Burton's other stuff, well, he's always a little stylized, especially back in the day, but like to make something like hyper stylized when you're making a movie about making movies,
Yeah,
is kind
absolutely
of
it
in
is.
a fun way.
And yeah, blurring the lines of reality in a wonderful way.
Yeah, for sure.
Later, Bunny and Dolores are with Ed at a wrestling match, and Bunny says he's going to start getting injections and going to become a woman. When he saw Ed's movie, he was inspired to finally do it. We see a wrestler coming out that Wood describes as a mountain. The wrestler easily has his way with his opponent. Wood says, "Can you imagine what he would look like in a movie?"
I kept thinking, I was like, golly, I kept thinking,
Where did
man,
they
that
find
guy's
this
hairy.
guy? And how did they find a guy
Yes.
who looked just like Tor
Yeah.
Johnson? It's uncanny.
I don't know. That's what I kept thinking. It's like they cloned him. How did they find
It's
this guy?
unbelievable.
It's wild.
He was a
It's
professional
George the Animal.
wrestler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's George
the
the
Animal
Animal.
Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he
but-
was famous for
I mean, still though, for you could find a lot of wrestlers, but one that looks just like Tor
It's
Johnson
wild.
is a
Wild.
find.
Later,
That's
we
true.
see this wrestler getting a massage and eating a whole chicken, a scene that obviously stuck with me. I love this part. Ed comes back and asks Tor, Mr. Johnson, if he ever wanted to be an actor. He pitches him Bride of the Atom and the role of Lobo, and Tor seems interested.
His voice sounds like it comes from some Star Wars droid.
That's right.
It sounds like to me,
Yeah.
Andre the Giant, just
Yeah.
slightly altered.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, Ed gets a call from...
Anybody got a peanut? Anybody want a peanut? Anybody want a peanut?
This is a
Wow.
secret
That's spot
talent.
on. That was really good.
And this year at the the church talent show.
It's a very specific impression I'm about to do.
Close your eyes. Anyway, the middle of the night, Ed gets a call from Bela Lugosi asking him to help. Can he please come over? Ed does, opens a door to Bella's place to find him crumpled over in the corner of his house with a needle. He's been tied up. Says, no hospital, just get him off the couch. Ed asks him if he can get him water or a blanket, and Bella says just goulash, which, I mean, it's pretty great. Pretty great answer.
Yeah. Medicinal goulash.
Ed asks what's in the needle, and Bella says it's morphine. He says he's so broke, he doesn't know what he's going to do. Ed says, I won't let you down. And this stuff is true. It's wild. Wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next day, Ed calls Warner's and gets let down. Later, he's down on himself with Dolores. She says, maybe raise the money yourself because you may not be studio material. So we cut to a montage of Ed making calls to secure funding. One of the calls asks if Lugosi can make an appearance on Friday night. We cut to a theater where a review is going on and Lugosi is in a Dracula outfit. A psychic is being broadcast from the theater on television. And Bella is next and rises out of a coffin. He's doing a bit with a wacky character named Slip Slomopovitz. Slip Slomopovitz. There we go. Seeker of Adventure. Seeker of Adventure. I can't even do it. It's a wild guy. There you go.
Seeker of adventure. Yeah, this guy.
Wow. Lugosi is having problems reading, so the skit doesn't go too well. He says he was trying to ad-lib later as him and Wood leave. And Criswell the psychic stops him on the way out and takes him to an amazing restaurant where Cuban music plays. I want to go to this place.
Yes. It's the Brown Derby.
That's right. It does.
Right?
No,
Oh,
that's not yet.
Or was this?
No, that's
or was-
later.
That's later. Because they go a couple of times.
This looks like a place
Yes.
that Ricky Ricardo would be
Going nuts.
for sure.
Yeah.
Ed and Criswell start talking shop. Criswell says his act is a farce. If you look good and talk well, people will believe anything, which Ed seems to really resonate with. Then cut to another montage of Ed selling his pictures at a party at the Brown Derby, though no money is forthcoming. But at least we have the Brown Derby.
Mm-hmm.
At his wit's end, Ed overhears a lady at a bar cash of $50. He goes and finds her. She says she just moved into town. She is peculiar. She yells about not wanting liquids, which I don't understand.
Yeah. What was?
I don't
What was that? Another thing that is so weird, you wonder if it has to be based in reality because it's so weird and specific.
Yeah, I mean, I was like having a hard time in the middle of this figuring out like, yeah, is this real or is this like being weird? And most of the time I would look something up, it was real. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or based on
Right,
something
it's
that kind
like
of similar
movie
happened.
version of something that was real. Yeah.
Right. But the actress, I mean, I mean, it's Juliet Landau.
Yes,
Landau's
Drusilla.
daughter. Yeah, exactly. From Buffy.
The lovely Drusilla from Buffy. Yeah, it went on. Yeah, a vampire herself on Buffy. But yeah, I was like, oh, Juliet Landau. I was like, was she his granddaughter? And I looked it up. I'm like, no, she's his daughter. And so yeah, also great. I looked her up. She does like a lot of voice work now. So that's cool.
Well, Ed asks her if she wants to invest, and Loretta is all game. She asks, well, can I play a part? Well, he has a few ideas, but Loretta wants to play Janet, who is the part promised to Dolores. She says, can't you just see me in that part? And Ed says, yes. Well, Dolores doesn't think that's too great as she's throwing all the dishes and glasses at Ed. Oh, man, you miss the days where people just throw all the dishes in the kitchen to you. It's Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo all over again.
It is. That's true. Yeah.
She finally lands a cast iron skillet on his head. Ouch. It did look real.
Man, that would look real, did it not?
It did.
Yes.
It did.
Yeah.
And he takes a fall, like hard fall.
Next day on set, we get to work. Lugosi is talking to Tor, saying back in the day we would shoot 1 to 2 scenes a day, but Eddie shoots 30. It's incredible. Bella is being directed by Wood as well as Tor. In both scenes, Wood's always saying, perfect, cut it, print it. So he's moving along. One of those. I know the type. Tor ran through the wall. The cameraman says, your guy had some trouble going through the door. Don't you want to shoot another one? Wood disagrees, saying it would be something his character would have a problem with at all times, which I thought was a great line.
I love that explanation.
It's great.
That's the kind of problem he would be facing every day. Yes.
They're shooting another scene. The stage manager comes up and asks Wood for money. Wood yells, cut, and goes and asks Loretta for more money. Well, she said she gave Ed all her money already and doesn't have any more. So we see the stage manager kick out the crew. Guys, that's a wrap on that day.
Yeah. Because he thought that she was loaded when he met her in the bar. And
because he tells her how much it costs, and she's like, well, that's not much at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's like $60,000. She's like, really?
Yeah.
Just that?
Yeah.
Trust and verify.
Exactly.
So she ends up giving him only like $300. And so he's like, I need the rest. And she's like, what are you talking about?
Wood sees someone named Vampira, who he had seen on TV before. She thinks he's asking her to show the movie on television, but Wood is begging her to be in his movie. And that's a nope from Vampira, who's nonplussed by him at this point.
I think Vampira is the super sexy cousin of Amy Mann's character from The Big Lebowski.
Yes, that's a good call. Good call.
Yes.
And there's a banner behind him. I think, is it this?
Yes.
I know it. One time it says like this year's hit or this year's smash.
And then they've pasted a thing over it. So it's like next year's big hit smash film.
That's very, very Simpsons like,
Yes.
Yes.
Good call.
So I was very, I guess, surprised maybe that Tim Burton cast his girlfriend as Vampira.
Yeah, that's weird, huh?
Shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird.
Because she wasn't great.
No, I mean, he hadn't gotten the Helena Bonham Carter phenotype yet.
Yeah, Monica Bellucci.
Right.
Yeah, he has an MO. He sure does.
He does.
But yeah, with her, I thought, well, what Robert you're saying, like she's not great, but it's like, how much is that, and how much is it just being weird? It's hard to tell with these characters.
I agree. I thought the same thing. I was like, she's stiff and awkward, but I think she was supposed to be stiff and awkward, so it works in this case.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Wrong. I'm just kidding.
Is that the wrong gong?
I'm neutral. I'm neutral on this. She says she has real offers from real studios. She doesn't have to blow some dentist. Is that a Screen Partners 3?
That's
Silver Screen
I
Partners.
bust
Yeah.
that laughing.
Oh, I never didn't even get that. That's great.
Yeah, I was cracking up about that gag there.
Well, later Wood has found his mark for now, a cowboy oil tycoon type who is some sort of cattleman butcher.
Who is
Yeah.
Who is it?
Rance Howard.
Rance Howard.
Oh, of course, it's Rance Howard. Yes. Yes, it is.
I was so happy for Andy on this.
Yeah. Yeah. And he says, like, I've got a son, or he says something about his son. And I was like, oh, I wonder if he's referencing Ron Howard.
No, Clint.
Well, he's signing Ed on to do it, but he has notes. He wants a big explosion at the end. Ed just nods through it and says, okay. Back on set, Dolores walks in. She's playing the file clerk, a.k.a. not a great role, and she is not happy. She meets Loretta, and it's icy. But maybe it makes for good cinema. The scenes have a lot of feeling behind them.
I will say,
Oh,
as somebody who's seen Bride of the Monster way too many times because of Mystery Science Theater, all these scenes that they recreate are like on a molecular level perfect.
Yes.
Oh, I was just about to say the exact same thing. It is. They play it so well. It's so accurate. You're like,
Yeah.
wow.
It's just unbelievable.
I remember Plan 9 a lot more than the other ones. When I get to the Plan 9, I mean, those like action sequences are exactly like it. Everything.
Yeah, like the motions, the line reads. Every time I see the real movie now, I think of this scene in this movie because it's so spot on. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the timing of it and just the little pause in between it, and just you're right, and the flatness of how they say the lines.
It's amazing. Well, at night, the crew sneaks into another soundstage or a props department. Lobo smashes the door in. They land in a creature warehouse and spot a giant octopus.
It's the magic of the movies at work. It's you expect
true.
Disney MGM Studios. I love this crew that he puts together. This like motley crew of just weirdos.
Yes.
And like I would watch a whole movie about them going around just having shenanigans.
Yes.
Because he's got like Criswell and Tor, and it's hilarious to me.
It's a little posse.
Yeah.
I love how Criswell becomes part of the crew.
Right.
He's like he's in
the crew.
And I mean, Jeffrey Jones used to be so good, and it's sad that his personal life went such the wrong direction, and he became such a creepy person. But yeah, I mean, he was
glorious age, for a while.
Yeah. He was just one of those guys who, whenever he showed up, you got excited because like whenever he was in the credits, you're like, all right, this is going to be good. Because he was just always great. Hunt for Red October, man, comedy and drama.
Yes,
I mean he could do it all.
Yeah,
he really could.
Range,
could do it all,
man had range. The crew takes the octopus to a lake and are getting ready to shoot at night. Lugosi says he doesn't know if he can do a night shoot. He's so tired, but really, it seems like he's trying to shoot up, which he does in the car.
And that shot, though. That shot,
Yes.
the reflection.
Take
of
us
his
through
arm.
it. Take us through it.
So there's what you don't see directly what he's doing, but you see it through the reflection of the windshield in front of him. That you see his arm get exposed, and then you see him start to inject something, and that was just brilliant. There's no other word
absolutely
for that.
Brilliant. I was trying to figure out how he did it, like how they lit that, how they got it to reflect like that. It was,
They're stunting at this point. Stunting.
Now he's just showing off at this point.
Yep.
I just always love how Landau, whenever he comes back from, he goes and shoots up and he comes back, he's like, okay, let's go.
Right.
It's always like super peppy.
Octopus looks terrible though. It doesn't have a motor. They forgot to get the motor. Bella says the water's cold and needs a whiskey. Everything seems to be falling apart. Yeah, he starts to muse that he turned down Frankenstein. He's very disillusioned at this point about where his career has landed, but he still knocks it out in a killer scene wrestling this inert octopus. Well, the next day the crew rolls in. Ed stops Bella, thanks him, says he shouldn't be going through the muck like this, says he wrote him a new final scene, and Bella seems impressed and says he will have no problem remembering these lines. He cuts a dramatic scene, big time chops from him here, and so the Bride of the Atom wraps.
This is, again, and I'm saying the same thing I did with the scene with the girls together. This is perfectly recreated from the Bela Lugosi thing. Like, just like every breath he does, like he just must have watched it a million times. But there's all this forsaken jungle hell. He's so good. It's amazing.
Well, we're off to the wrap party in the butcher's warehouse or abattoir or something. It's a scene. They have mariachi, too, wandering around the carcasses. What a place.
Oh, man.
And the mariachi's there because Bunny had been to Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. And
Go ahead.
Yeah, and he says, I didn't have my sex change, but I found these guys. And he turns and looks at them. They all smile. I busted out laughing when that happened.
There, but by the grace of the mariachi, he says. Ed is dressed in drag and performs the hoochie coochie as an organist plays on. That's quite the scene. Dolores looks on as he grabs Bella. He pulls his mask off, revealing his dentures out of his mouth. Dolores screams at him, saying he's wasting his life making terrible movies. Man, that is something, isn't it?
It is hard. I just love how into like his dance everybody was. Like everybody was like having a great time. Like, this is amazing. But that shot of him pulling off his mask with his teeth out is just hilarious.
Wild. It runs out after her. Dolores says, now the movie is done, so is she. She needs a normal life, and walks out. And there she goes.
Rockahula.
Later, Ed is watching Vampira, calls the set, asks her out to dinner. She says no thanks, in a matter of words, but then hangs up. Ed immediately gets a call from Bella to come help. Again, Ed goes over and Bella answers, this time with a revolver, saying he's going to kill himself. He's out of his gourd. He's got a letter from the government canceling his unemployment. Man, rough times.
Yeah, really.
Mr. Lugosi said Ed should come with him, cocks the gun. Ed says, I'm on your side. Give me the gun. I'll bring you a drink. Bella orders formaldehyde.
Straight up or on the rocks.
That was a good singer. Yeah.
And again, the lighting in this scene with the big Dracula portrait behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yes.
beautifully done.
Yes.
Well, finally, this leads Ed to take Bella to seek help for his drug addiction. And we see a dark hallway where Bella is in detox. Some very dark stuff here. Some scary scene right there.
Yeah.
And so with that dark, yet possibly hopeful note, we end Act 2.
Beware. Beware of the big green dragon that sits on your doorstep. Eats little boys, puppet dog tails, big fat snails. Beware. Take care. Beware. Wait! Pull the string! Pull the string!
Yeah, that image of Bella like strapped into his bed screaming. Pretty rough.
Yeah.
Pretty rough stuff.
It is haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next morning, Ed wakes up on a bench in the waiting room. Find a lovely blonde lady in an Angora sweater. She's knitting nearby. So he's just kind of like, yeah, Angora, it's so good. he's just really excited about how great it is. And she's like, are you an Angora salesman? He says, no, he's in pictures with director, actor, writer, and producer. She's like, nah, go on. Nobody does all that. He says, yes, they do. Orson Welles and me. He's a big Orson Welles fan. In his apartment, he had Orson Welles posters. So he's a fan. So she's there. She's there for her dad, who is also in the institution. She has been knitting some booties for her dad. He's been in there a long time. She's knitted a lot of booties. So the doctor comes out. Ed tracks him down, says Bella has a lot of junk in his system. Apparently he was addicted to morphine, tried to kick that, got addicted to methadone. But the doctor says, it's not great, but they'll do their best. So later, Ed is coming to pay another visit. He discovers the prototypical 1950s media with their flashbulbs blazing. They've kind of burst into the ward and are taking photos of Bella. And sort of, hey,
he's just sitting there. He's just sitting there.
But yeah, he's just like sitting there in his gown, like soaking it up, kind of. He's like, yeah, it's kind of smiling. Ed chases him off, but Bella's like, no, what are you doing? He's happy to have the attention. He's, and I love this exchange. Ed's like, they're parasites. They're just trying to exploit you. And Bella's like, let them.
Yeah, he's like, thank you. Yeah,
he's like, thank you.
No such thing as bad press.
No such thing as bad press. He's up for it. He's got plans. He's going to get healthy and strong and get out of the hospital, and he's going to make a comeback. He's all excited about it. So Ed's back in the waiting room, and the pretty blonde lady returns, and she's made some booties for Bella, and they're black to match his cape, which I thought was fun. And this charms Ed. Ed is charmed. So they head off to a carnival, get some cotton candy, and are going by the Ferris wheel. And Ed's talking about, yeah.
So this is another shot here. So this wasn't like over the top, but I mean, everything is deep focus. The angle, the Ferris wheel, so much detail in these shots is blowing my mind. Like,
I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, everything is just so, timed and just, brilliant. I loved it.
Must have been throwing a crazy amount of light on everything, you would think. Probably,
definitely,
I don't know things, but yeah. And it looks fantastic. And, Ed's giving a little backstory about his life growing up in Poughkeepsie. And, he was a Boy Scout and, his all-American apple pie, all this sort of thing. And he starts talking about his love. He loved like pulp magazines and that sort of thing. And he loves the radio. They talk a little about the radio shows they like. And he loves Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater and The Shadow. But then they see the Spook House, which takes me back to the Cleveland County Fair.
Yes.
The Spook House.
Their Spook House wasn't nearly as entertaining as this one, though, I'm afraid.
No.
Oh, I'm sure. I never went on the Spook House at the Cleveland County Fair, but
you
just
should have gone on the
exterior.
Cleveland County Fair Spook House.
I can only imagine the level of quality the Reithofer shows brought in their Spook House.
Oh, man.
Good guys. So, yeah, this is for a carnival Spook House. This one's a little fancy. Also, did you notice there's kind of like a creature that pops out that I think was supposed to be a reference to the like sandworm thing in Beetlejuice? It looked like it, kind of. It kind of pops out at them from the side. So I don't know. It might have been a reference.
But again, some incredible lighting in this stuff too.
Yeah, because they're in the dark. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the shadow play and all that is just really cool.
Yeah. So they're talking a little about Bella and, how fond he is of Bella. But then the ride breaks down. They're kind of stuck in the dark. And Ed takes the opportunity to tell the girl, her name is Kathy, by the way, He's like, "Hey, I don't typically say this on the first date," but he tells her that he likes to wear women's clothes. And it's such a sweet reaction because she's like a little bewildered at first, just a little confused. And he's like really sort of over the top explaining the situation, just very eagerly. He's very eager to spill. But she kind of thinks about it and then she's like, okay. So, which this is a very sweet response. Like, she doesn't care.
It made me think of the Lumberjack song.
Yes.
Monty Python, which doesn't end sweetly, where they're like, I thought you were so rugged or whatever. And then,
Oh, Bevis.
But yeah. And also, they're in front of the Dracula casket when, here they are, this couple's, starting to fall in love kind of a thing. And earlier in the film, Bella tells Eddie, he says, if you ever want to make out with a girl, take her to see Dracula. And something about, just the sensuality and the being scared and all that, it does something. And so I just thought that was a neat kind of callback how that happened.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I didn't even catch that. That's good. So we're back in the hospital and we find out, this is all just so sad to me. Bella isn't insured because his union eligibility ran out years ago. And Ed's like, well, I'll cover it. I've got a few $100s, but the doctor says that's not nearly enough. Bella's got to go. This is the saddest scene in the movie, I think, because
it's awful.
It's awful. Ed goes to wake Bella up and he's like, doctor says you're all better. You can go home now. And Bella is feeling rough. He looks rough. He's like,
and just think, that was a whole big thing, as all the stars, getting sick and not having health care. Back in that golden era, stars was gonna.
And I don't think I mentioned this, but one of the things that Bella was so excited about when the press was there, he's like, I'm the first star to enter rehab. And I was like, wow, interesting. Wow. I never think about that. But yeah.
But I liked how it just shows Ed Wood's his optimism and how he would always find like a way to shine like the right kind of light on something. Like, because earlier in the film when they were getting those terrible reviews, he was saying, look, they said that the costumes were great or something like that. And so he was trying to put a positive spin on it. And so here he is, he's doing his best to, cheer up his friend here and give him some sort of, instead of it being terrible news, he's like, hey, you're doing great. That's why we're going home, kind of a thing. I don't know. There's there's a sweetness to their relationship, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, you look great. The test came back fine. Like, he's really talking it up. And like, I have a real fascination with like old Hollywood in general, but having watched all these old movies that like these people made, these really, really bad movies. And they're always, again, like every group of them seems to have a little like gang that were always in the same movies over and over again, and like always use the same people. And there's a director called Coleman Francis who was even worse, way worse than Ed Wood. And they had his movies on Mystery Science Theater. It was kind of the same thing. He had like the same group of people. There's something about just these sort of gangs of like people that sort of supported each other like back in the day, but they all were like down on their luck and like, living in, I don't know. It's just something really fascinating about me. But yeah, you're right. You hear about all these people that just had no safety net at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
What do you think it is about those people? Why did they stick together? Is it because they found people who were, who were sad and broken like them, or who were, they found their crew and that's all, they just wanted to stay with those people?
Yeah, I think it's just people who, I don't know, I guess drawn to like the whole Hollywood thing, but there's like a limit to their ability, Yeah. But they still want to do it. So I think it's, weirdos always find each other. And I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
Good weirdos.
It is nice. Like I said, it's nice that they have each other. You instead of, they're this sort of outcast.
Yes.
It's really touching. Yeah, it is.
And that's why I think I'm always
the movie.
I agree. Yeah,
agree.
It's this community that they have built.
Like fascinated by these networks of people that appear in these movies, and you read up about them, and their stories are always so. Like everybody ends up in like a shoddy apartment in North Hollywood or something, and like they get old, but they're like forgotten. And so it's all kind of tragic, but at the same time, they had this team of people. I don't know. I'm really interested by that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this is played throughout in a big way. I think that scene where Dolores calls out Ed, and Ed's so comfortable being, the wild kind of teeth out version of himself, like all kinds of, he's can be whatever identity he wants, and she just doesn't fit into that world.
Yeah. Well, and it like he gets his hackles up. Really, the only times in the movie, well, almost, when she like insults like everybody else on the crew. Like he doesn't get bothered when she comes after him, but when she's like, "Oh, you're hanging out with these losers," he's like, "Yeah, keep quiet,
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, Bella's feeling rough, and Ed has to pretty much lift him out of the bed and out of the hospital. But he comes out of the hospital dressed up in a suit. Bella Lugosi in a suit gives me kind of our grandfather vibes occasionally, I have to say.
You mean Martin Landau?
Martin Landau. Yeah, Martin Landau in a suit.
Yeah, totally.
Little bit. Anyway, Bella says, Eddie, I want to make another movie. And Ed says, we're going to make one very soon. So we head back to Bella's house where Ed is getting ready to shoot. There's no even crew at this point. And Ed's like, oh, we're shooting second unit footage. This was clear he's just doing this for Bella's benefit. And Ed starts to spin a yarn about, he's like, you're a respected man and you're leaving your house on your way to a big social brouhaha. And he's just basically getting a shot of him leaving the house. But Bella suggests he takes a moment to smell a rose that's blooming nearby. And it's like, the impermanence of beauty and all this stuff. And Ed's like, that's great. Again, this is a scene that winds up being in Plan 9. Looks, I don't know how they found this house or if they just built it. But it looks just like the real movie for sure. Anyway, that evening, Ed calls up Vampira again. She's like, what are you doing? He invites her to the premiere of Bride of the Monster, the new name for Bride of the Atom. He changed it because monsters are in. So the gang, his crew, all of whom come in their own like costumes. Vampires in vampire costume, and Bella's in Dracula costume. Everybody's in costume. They head to the theater in a giant hearse, which I thought was a nice touch. This thing is a beast, but they pile in. So they go into this theater kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's a very rowdy audience of scamps and hoodlums is tearing up the place.
Scene. This is crazy. And I love it. I am here for it. I'm loving this scene. Because they show up in front of the theater and there's nothing there. And just the guy, whatever you call him, the guy that's running the theater or whatever, runs up to him. He's like, come, they're tearing the place apart. And they go in and it is a madhouse. You don't hear anything until they open that door.
How much popcorn do you think they went through in this?
A lot.
So good.
Yeah.
So amazing.
The shot of the audience from behind, you just see, that's all you see is just popcorn and stuff just flying in the air.
It's like if you got a theater full of moochies on crack and gave them popcorn, that's what this is. This is wild.
Oh,
There's a Disney short where they go to a movie theater, like all the little like Mickey Mouse, kids that were all they're like throwing. Like, it looked like that. Like it was just, but yeah,
that's a good.
That was what it reminded me of.
Yeah, well, Ed sends the actors like into the fray, and he gets a mic. Somebody provides him a mic, so he steps up. And he starts to give this like spooky monologue, like on the night when the monsters come out to play, or something like that. But of course, no one's listening, and they start assaulting Bella and Vampira and Tor and Criswell just from all sides. Vampira gets assaulted.
Yeah.
And finally, somebody smart turns off the lights and starts the movie. And Ed kind of runs in to save everybody. But then they do. I'm trying to think of what this even reminds me of. It's so crazy.
It reminds me of, again, this is like another Wes Anderson thing to me, especially when they go out, which made me die laughing when they came out.
So Ed's crew flee the
But
theater.
because everything's like really centered. It's
Yes.
like that centered, like kind of zoomed out Wes Anderson thing, foreground, background thing.
You know what it reminds me of? This is kind of weird, but in what's it called? The Hudsucker Proxy, when they have the montage of the hula hoop being introduced to the kids.
Yes.
And the kids come like bursting out like after it. That's kind of what it's like. I did laugh really hard when they come out of the theater after them because
oh man, they're like all these hoodlums dismantling that car.
yeah, they come out and they're like scamps all over their car, like stripping the hearse completely.
And I like how there's no background happening. There's no cars going about.
No.
It's everything. You're right. Everything is centered. It's like everything's revolving around the characters in that scene.
Yeah, the Wes Anderson is a really good call on that. That's a good call. Yeah. So then the kids come bursting out of the theater and like charges them. I don't even know what these kids are doing, but they're just
it's hard to say.
in attack mode.
Did they just watch the movie and then they're upset that it was so bad, or they just got tired of
unclear
waiting?
to me.
I think it just started, and I think it had just started because they're kind of fleeing when they leave the theater. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they were just, let's go kill those
Just
people.
rowdy.
So Kathy jumps on the hood of a passing cab to stop it, and Patricia Arquette really throws herself into it, I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
Jumps on the hood of the cab, and they all manage to get in the cab, which surprised me. And Bella says, "Now that was a premiere." So he's excited. I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
So the next day, Bella and Ed are walking through Hollywood talking about the previous night and about Kathy, who impressed Bella by jumping in front of the cab. He's like, not every young lady, you find a woman who'll jump on a cab, then you got to lock that down. So Bella thanks Ed for all the fun he's been having lately. He's really been having a good time. And in the middle of the sidewalk, just in front of some store, he starts performing the monologue from Bride of the Monster that he did earlier. And, we see all this on a shot of him. But then when he's done, we see he's like drawn a crowd who like give him a little round of applause and asking for his autograph.
Yeah.
Good stuff. He's soaking it up.
That scene.
Yeah, it's a good scene. It's like a nice little sort of last hurrah for him. It's really nice. So later, Ed is reading a pulp sci-fi magazine to Kathy when the phone rings, and it's bad news. Bella has died. We see him in his casket in his full Dracula costume, which he specified in his will that he wanted to be buried in. And of course, the funeral home, it's all of the Wood acting company. You've got Vampira, you've got Tor, Bunny,
which is awesome.
Criswell, everybody. Yeah. They're a little mutual support society. Ed is very sad. We find him in a screening room. He's watching the film of Bella leaving the house that he shot earlier, but he's got other problems. His landlord's knocking on his door saying he bounced his third and final rent check. This is where it starts to give me PTSD about being poor and living in a small studio apartment in Hollywood, which I may have had some, brush with here and there, but just these shoddy Hollywood studio apartments, which are probably from Ed Wood times, I guarantee you, are a similar vintage and have not been improved any in that time. These are sort of one-room places. It was very evocative of that. So I was like, "Oh, Ed, what's happening?" So
jumping back to when he was in the theater watching the Bela Lugosi footage. There's something amazing about how he just sits there and he loves movies so much.
Yes.
And he's just looking at footage and just trying to figure out how can I make this into a movie? Because he did something earlier in the film when he's talking to the old guy when the footage of the buffalo guy. And the stock footage guy. How he's like, I could make a movie out of that. And I mean, just his creative mind. I mean, it's one of those things that as poor of a director he was very creative. and that gets lost, I think, often.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was really, I really like that about the character.
That's a really great point. And the excitement, just the sheer excitement of thinking about movies. And like Johnny Depp does really well at conveying all this about just, and like, even when he's like hits his low point and all it takes is a word from somebody and he's like, and it starts him going. But yeah, with that stock footage of Buffalo and Army Men, and he's like, I could have a story where you have this happen, then you have this happen, then you have this happen. And it's like, what about this? And he comes up with an excuse for why it would be in the movie. And I mean, I think that's why these films are like Ed Wood's movies are so kind of beloved, because it's like he spent his life doing this and he was so bad at it, but he really, really just couldn't do anything but do it, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's wild. Yeah.
And they were all actually made with love. He was doing it. Thought he was doing his best work. And, and there's something charming and endearing about that.
Well, there's that great line earlier when he was outside the studio, and it's like, it's the guy, the exec is like, it's the worst movie I've ever seen. And he's like, well, my next one will be better.
Yeah.
Like, that's so good. Anyway, so he's trying to fast talk his landlord, and we see he's brought in all of Bella's tiny dogs in his tiny apartment, and it's pretty rough. Pretty rough. Landlord sees the poster for Bride of the Monster on the wall, and he's like, in the picture business. I'm interested in the picture business. Says he and his associates want to make a series of uplifting religious films about the lives of the apostles. Which I just thought was
We're
really
back,
funny.
baby.
Yeah. And he said, well, he's like, Ed's like, yeah, that's great. And he's like, it's like expensive or something. The guy's like, well, we have enough money to make one film, but not all 12. And Ed's like, eyes light up. He's like, so, and he like instantly goes into sales mode. Like, what you got to do, you got to make a film in a commercially proven genre and use the profits from that to make the Apostle movies, which not makes a bad sense. Pitch,
No.
So but then he's like, I've got a script, Grave Robbers from Outer Space, and it's money in the bank. So it's like, know your audience, Ed. But the landlord's skeptical, but Ed slicks talks him and says, you'll be able to make 100 religious films with this guaranteed blockbuster. This landlord is very fluffy, I think. Don't you agree, Jeff? He's like, that's nice. But he's like, don't big films require big stars? It's like, well, we've got a big star, Bela Lugosi. And he's like, isn't he dead? He's like, oh my goodness, I thought he was dead. But he's like, no, this is the last film he ever shot. And we find out he's keeping the real film in a pot in his little kitchenette, which I thought was a nice touch. And it's just like a little reel, but the landlord's like, it doesn't look like much. It says, this is the acorn from which a mighty oak will grow. Like, we'll get a double to finish all of Bella's scenes, and we'll sell it as Lugosi's final film. So we find Kathy and Ed in what I assume is her apartment, and she's working on painting some flying saucers, which I thought was fun. And Ed's, he's on the phone with Bunny. He's putting out the word that they're working on another movie. So get everybody together. Paul, the actor, one of the actors from his films, has been out looking for doubles for Bella, but he's not having much luck. He brought in there's this big guy and there's an old Asian man, which I thought was funny. He's like, he's like, Bella played Fu Manchu or something. So it's just like in that movie. But Ed sends him away. Ed's kind of flustered. And he's kind of talking to Kathy. She notices in the paper that Vampira has been fired from the TV station due to, and I had to pause it to read why, suspected communist ties. So
I missed that.
Communist intrigue.
Another red.
Because I could tell it was scandal. I was like, was it something, naughty or whatever? But no, it's communism. communism was just a red herring. Ed sees this as an opportunity, as he sees everything as an opportunity. He meets with Vampira in a little cafe. Kathy's there. He's trying to pitch her on a role as the ghoul's wife. Vampira is having a little bit of an attitude about it, which I'm like, slow your roll, Vampira.
She does. She kind of acts like she's too good for them in a way.
Yeah, she really does. Oh, and Kathy calls her out on it and says, you're lucky you found Ed. Like, not many people are talking to you. And he's being nice to you. He doesn't judge anybody. And this is, this is like the thread we've been talking about through this whole thing. It's like, yeah, I can't, or I wouldn't have any friends, which I just thought was amazing. Can't judge the weirdos I hang out with, or no one would talk to me. So Vampira says she doesn't want to be noticed, wants her part to be less prominent. She doesn't even want any lines. So she's willing to appear, but doesn't want to do anything. But just then, Kathy calls out to someone she knows. It's Dr. Tom, her chiropractor. And Dr. Tom, very affable, well, hello, comes over and they do a thing. Her neck's a little out of alignment. So he snaps her neck.
Catch who Dr. Tom was?
No.
Eddie Sherman.
Yeah, Seinfeld went from the mailroom to VP in 1 week.
Yeah, the peak.
That's
perfect. He's the camo wearing guy in the mailroom who Elaine promotes to a catalog writer.
Oh,
and then he goes to what? What'd you say? He goes to VP? Is that right?
I think he went all the way up to VP. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
starts
perfect.
choking or so, and he starts choking, and when George's father sees him, and he's cooking because he used to be a cook in Korea. It's great. That's a great episode.
Yeah, it's a really solid episode. Yeah,
a lot of Seinfeld actors everywhere. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's a lot of them in this movie.
True. It's like the Andy Griffith episode goes into Seinfeld.
Yeah, totally. I the neck snap made me laugh out loud. It's like it's almost like he about snapped her neck in real life. It looked like
they're sitting there in a booth and he comes over and does an adjustment like right there, and he's like looks like he's choking her.
Like the sound effect is great. It's like a really old school like crack. Funny stuff. And but while he's doing this, Ed notices something about his profile, about Dr. Tom's profile. Ed is dazzled by Dr. Tom's head shape. He holds his napkin up so you can only see like the top of Dr. Tom's head. He's like, it's uncanny. So later we find ourselves at the Baptist church where all of Ed's gang has showed up to be baptized to make the funders happy.
This is like this reminds me of Coen Brothers or something.
For sure.
Like this when the religion gets brought into it.
Yes,
it's really funny.
Absolutely. They're all of Ed's friends are sitting on the back row of the church goofing off. We find out that Ed has recruited Dr. Tom to be Bella's double in the movie. So Dr. Tom's like doing I want to suck your blood and goofing off. And then Bunny's being inappropriate and they're all like laughing and cutting up. And it's like, shut up. We're trying to make these people
these Baptists
happy.
To like us.
Yeah. We want these Baptists to like us. So they go to be baptized.
It's Beverly Hills Baptist, First Baptist or something like that, isn't it? It's a very
yeah. I mean, this whole scene. So they go out to be baptized in a swimming pool because Tor can't fit in the usual tub that they use. So they've got this great like vintage swimming pool out back or somewhere, wherever they go. And, Ed gets in and, gets immersed. But then Bunny gets in and Bill Murray is like peak Bill Murray in this. Oh. Like when they dunk him, he like flails around. Like
it's like, do you reject Satan and all his evils? He goes, sure.
That was like a Venkman reading too.
Yeah. Because before he even gets in the water, he kind of tests the water with his foot.
Yeah.
Like, he was just still in the scene.
So he he can't stand up in the swimming pool. He just like thrashes over to where Ed is. And this again goes to what we've been talking about. He's like, how do you do it, Ed? And Ed's like, what? And he's like, how do you get all your friends to be baptized just so you can make a monster movie? And it's like, it's not a monster movie. It's a supernatural thriller. So,
Jeff, did you catch who the Reverend Lemon was? The man baptizing everybody?
I didn't
No,
know.
I
It
did
took me
not.
several scenes. It was eating at me. I had to stop the movie, and then I finally remembered it was the senator from The Godfather Part 2.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
I would have never got that.
Like his accent, like it kept, I was like, I remember that accent. I was like, what movie is that from? And I couldn't find him in the casting. And then finally it dawned on me. I was like, it's the senator from The Godfather Part 2.
Very impressive.
That is a crazy connection. Yeah. So we find Vampira in full makeup and costume riding the city bus to the soundstage, and she is not happy about the situation. She's making lots of disapproving noises and stuff, rolling her eyes. And Ed's on the soundstage. He's taking care of problems. Somebody realized that Bella's double doesn't have hair. And Ed's like, oh, I didn't notice that. It's the little details, that's not important. The sponsors are worried. The church folks are worried about all the mentions of grave robbing in the script because that's consecrated ground is a mortal sin and all this stuff. They are upset about the title as well and suggest they change it to Plan 9 from Outer Space, which Ed's like, that's ridiculous. That's not a bad name, really. Ed's like, it's ridiculous. Back on the set, they're shooting. The sponsors are even more nervous as they see them shoot. Tor's playing a police detective, and
so funny.
This guy's voice is just incredible. And they're like, he's unintelligible. And Ed's like, well, Bella's dead and Vampira won't talk, so I had to give the lines to somebody. So we've got Bunny's there. Bunny's being the lead space guy, and he's being fussy about his makeup. He wants to be like really out there, like sort of like David Bowie, like glitter on his face and stuff.
He's like, you're the leader of the universe. And he's like, how about glitter?
And it's just like everything is building up and just kind of making Ed crazy. And we find Dr. Tom. He's got a wig now. He's standing in for Bella, but he's just sort of walking around with his cape held over his face and just completely hiding his face, meandering around. And
which again is what really happened.
Yes,
which just
actually
bears
happened.
Mentioning once again.
Yes.
Yep.
And jumping back to Tor Johnson's voice, do you guys think Strong Mad was based off of Tor Johnson?
Oh, that is a good call.
That would be
Time for go to bed. Yes.
Yeah.
That is a good call.
Bring it to the house.
That was good.
that's good.
So Ed's doing his thing where he's like one shot, one take, done. And something is wrong with every shot, but this starts to worry the funders. They start pointing out all the technical errors in the scene, which they are correct. They're like, that tombstone fell over and these sets look really shoddy. And it was day before and now it's night.
This gave me some PTSD to recording artists and having people be like, I think we should do one more take. Why would I do another take? That one was perfect.
Oh no.
No, it wasn't.
Like, oh,
it's not.
I'm here listening, and let me tell you. No.
But yeah, I was triggered. But really funny to have them be the voices of reason this far in.
Yeah, because
to the movie.
Yeah, you think they're going to be
like totally normal observations.
Yeah, because it's like the stuff that literally anyone would point out about the movie, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't. It seems a little. Those are cardboard tombstones.
And then they're being kind about it, which
Yes.
makes it even funnier to me.
Yes.
It's just, they're just like, isn't that supposed to be?
They're like approaching him like as a filmmaker. It's like, I don't want to tell you your business, but they're like looking.
Right.
It's almost like they assume there's an explanation for why it's so bad.
Right, totally.
Like, tell us why this is a thing. But Ed's so good. He's like, filmmaking isn't about tiny details, but the big picture. He's like, have you never heard of suspension of disbelief? So he's got an answer for everything. So then walks up a big grinning lug who is the choir director who they are putting into the film as the hero. This guy, I don't know who he is, but it was very funny when he walked up. He's like, hi.
But man, I've seen that guy before. Haven't you, Robert?
Who is it? I didn't catch it.
I'm just talking about the
general.
character.
The guy.
The
yeah.
kind
Oh,
of
yes.
guy.
Yes.
You know that guy.
Yeah.
The choir, the leader of the choir.
Yeah. I've met that guy many times. Andy's met that guy many times.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Andy. Yeah, Andy knows that guy. Yep.
Well, this is like too much for Ed. Ed flips out. He stomps his feet, walks off the set to the dressing room. He's talking to himself in the mirror, trying to calm himself down. But just as his eye catches an Angora sweater hanging nearby, so he comes charging out of the dressing room in his lady's wardrobe and his blonde wig, which, of course, what do you think is going to happen with these super religious sponsors? And they're like, this is an abomination. That makes him really mad.
Doesn't he says something like, these Baptists are driving me crazy or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. It's just funny.
It's just funny.
But it's like, taking a shot at his movie was bad, but when they take a shot at like the lady's wardrobe, then that really sets him off. And he just walks out in his outfit, flags down a cab, gets in, heads to the nearest bar, which happens to be Musso and Frank's, which is still there. A classic. Wow. I love he walks in, he's in his outfit, he comes in and orders a whiskey. But takes a shot. But then he notices someone sitting in the corner, and it's Vincent D'Onofrio. It's Orson Welles.
He has breaded fish sticks.
And some frozen peas.
Man, this is a heck of an Orson Welles, right?
Yes,
here.
it is.
Yeah.
This is Maurice LaMarche, I believe, the voice actor. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Who does a
Holy moly.
killer Orson Welles.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because I think they said something like Vincent tried to do it, but Tim Burton didn't care for it, didn't like his sound or whatever.
Oh, okay. That makes
So that's why they
sense.
brought
I mean, you just gotta. It's like they don't even really do this anymore. Like that spot on. It's like I feel like every movie I see is like kind of not that close.
But he really does look like him. He did a good job looking like him.
Yeah, it looks like just like him. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, it's really wild how good it is. And I guess when you have an impression that good, you got to use it no matter who's doing it. So Ed's thunderstruck. He takes off his wig and sort of approaches Wells, says he's a big fan. He just, I just wanted to meet you. It's like,
I thought that was interesting. I was interested that he took his wig off because all this time he's talked about how this is who he's comfortable being and so, but for some reason he sees his hero and he decides to take his wig off. What did y'all think anything about that?
I did notice that. And he's kind of like holds it kind of humbly, kind of like you'd hold a hat almost.
Hat in your hand. Yeah.
It's
But no, that's
interesting
a great point.
Well, also how it's just not even any of that's like not acknowledged by Wells at all.
Yes.
It's just immediately into it, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. He just looks right past it. He's like, just starts talking to him as if he's just anybody else.
But it's an interesting clash because it just shows the sort of, it's like culture clash because he's been in this sort of crazy world of his own creation and where like, all of that stuff seems just like perfectly, why wouldn't he be doing that? But then he steps out and everybody's in suits and everybody's like so it's like, oh my God, it's like the real world and it's like jarring, but he's like, oh, suddenly I am I do stick out. It's
and they have, and I just love how they bond on because they have so much in common, even as different as they are. There's just so many things that suddenly they're bonding over. It's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and the studio does this to me as well, and blah 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 blah. Oh, it's just an interesting narrative, I think.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they have these same problems, it's just that Orson Welles is Orson Welles, because Orson's working on something, and he's like, my Don Quixote project has fallen through for the third time, and Ed's like, they just start talking about producers and interference, like these guys, and he's like, they want me to cast somebody that's wrong for the part, and Orson Welles says, well, he's talking about Touch of Evil. He's like, they want me to make a thriller with Charlton Heston as a Mexican. And they're like, that's ridiculous. And Ed's finally asked, he's like, do you think it's all worth it? And Will says, it is when it works. Says the only film of his where he had total control was Citizen Kane. The studio hated it, but they couldn't touch it. They couldn't touch a frame of it. Says visions are worth fighting for. And this is like the pep talk that Ed needs. This gets him riled up. So he goes busting back into the studio, tells the sponsors, we're going to finish the picture his way, going to make a bundle. And it works. They're like, sure. All right. So we get a great montage of Ed sort of cheerfully directing scenes from Plan 9. He's totally oblivious to how bad it is. He's splicing in stock footage. He's doing special effects shots with flying saucers hanging from fishing poles. Over the little model Hollywood, so good. And he even buys into
I love
the new
too
title.
that, I mean, like the people who are behind are either like amazed or kind of skeptical.
Yes.
It's like the great reaction shots of everybody else watching along. It's great.
Yeah, it's clear that like he's not the only one that's like into it. There are other people that are like, this is great. And man, he is loving it. He is super excited. So they wrap the picture and we head to the Pantages Theater. Very nice. Where spotlights are lighting up for the big premiere.
Oh, man. This theater is just beautiful.
It is a real nice
Beautiful
theater.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So Ed pulls up in his car with Kathy just as it starts to rain. Of course, the car is smoking and shuddering. And he can't get the roof up, but they're like, whatever. So they head inside, find Criswell, who is already addressing a packed theater of fancy people, who turn around and give Ed an ovation.
I thought this was an amazing contrast to the other scene that we see where they're all there and it's quiet and they open to the door and it's that riot. And then this one, it's like, it's almost like they're late and it's raining and it's a mess and they go in and it's all perfect.
Yeah, totally. And it's almost like,
because again, they pull up and they're the only car. It's there. There's no one else walking around. Again, it's very centered on just them.
Well, and you tie that into like the first scene of the movie where he's out front of that theater and there's nobody there because there's nobody in the theater, so then it kind of changes each time. But I just think, because this, I'm sure, I don't know for sure, but I am positive this did not happen. None of this happened. But
right.
But it's like where it starts to like enter, it's almost like a dream sequence for him of like, this is what it could be like if it all worked out. This would be perfect, So he like runs through the stage and it's like The Price is Right. He runs up and he addresses the crowd, says, "This film is for Bella." So everybody applauds. The film starts. Everybody applauds. The cast is up in the box. Such a beautiful theater. They're super happy. And Ed's title card comes up and the crowd gives a big applause. So the movie starts and the dialogue starts, which is ridiculous. But Ed is mouthing the dialogue of the narration as the footage of Bella plays. He's kind of like side-eyeing the crowd to see what their reaction is. He says, "This is the one I'll be remembered for," which is great. So, later they leave, he and Kathy leave the theater and there's some people that follow, but, we never see a reaction, like a crowd reaction. It's still raining and he stops in the rain and asks her to marry him. And she's like, it's raining. And he's like, "We'll drive to Las Vegas." He's like, "It's raining." He's like, "Oh, it'll be over by the time we go around the block, and, you know, always the optimist. So they open up the car. It's a great shot of just all the water. It's like a comic, like a cartoon. Open up the door of the car and like water pours out. So they get in, they head off, and the camera pans up over the theater to show the Hollywood Hills. And we get the American Graffiti Whatever Happened To title cards.
Yes.
Yeah. We find out Ed never found success. He descended into alcoholism and monster nudie films. He died in 1978 at the age of just 54, which sounds a lot younger now than it used to. Kathy and Ed, they did get married. They were married for over 20 years until he passed away. After his death, she never remarried. Bella, it says, is now more famous than ever. His memorabilia still outsells Boris Karloff's by a large margin. Bunny never got his sex change operation, but was still alive when the movie came out. So was Dolores, who, as we have said, went on to write songs for Elvis like Rockahula and Do the Clam. And Tor himself made other movies, but became a best-selling Halloween mask. And he died in 1971. So after saying goodbye to our wacky gang, we reach the end. Did we?
Yeah, we did.
I think we did. I think that's it. Nothing left to say.
You know, yeah, because I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but I mean, I'm typically was not a Depp fan, but I thought he just hit it out of the park in this one. I really enjoyed his performance. And
Oh, totally.
Great.
Totally.
I read where he studied a lot of Ronald Reagan in addition to some other stuff, like the actor Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
And it has like some of that feel to it, just like the biting off those things.
Yes. Good call.
So good.
Yeah.
have any of you seen the Coen Brothers movie, The Man Who Wasn't There?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
This had a lot. I mean, reminded me a lot of that. Small parts like the flying saucer references and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
and it was they were both in black and white. But I just kind of wonder if they were inspired by any of this.
That's an
'Cause
interesting
that
question.
came out a couple of years later, and it was sort of their art house movie. It didn't get wide distribution, but
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
So
I'd say, you know, if we were rating it, you'd have to give it a 5 on production value for sure. It
I
was
think
just
so,
unreal.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of flashy stuff, but there's just also everything looks perfect. So, like, even the stuff that's normal just looks great, I think.
Mhm.
That's just... And the music is the same. I mean, some of that stuff is really distinctive, and everything else just supports and feels of the time in a way that feels really effortless, but clearly it's not.
and Howard Shore, he pulled music from like Glenn or Glenda, and he would use that within the film.
Like the motifs
yeah,
of that.
that's what that was.
Oh,
really
that's
neat.
really good. Really good. Yeah. I hate we're not rating this one because, I mean, it would kill. It would get it would do really well in all these categories. Just everybody, you know, aside, we talked about Lisa Marie, who was Vampira. Aside from her, everybody is just totally into it 1000%.
Oh, I know. I mean, like, I think Patricia Arquette is just fantastic.
Oh, she's so good.
I mean, obviously, Martin Landau is amazing. I mean, but yeah, it's just top to bottom.
Yeah, Landau. I mean, he was so good. So he won the best supporting actor.
Yeah.
For this movie,
He did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you see why. I mean, he's just
Oh yeah.
amazing.
He really is amazing.
But it's not like he's sticking out either. He's just so
No.
good within the movie, and it's incredible. But I'm curious. So, for those of you who this is the first time you've seen it, so you went in with this certain kind of expectation. Did it meet your expectation, or I mean, how did you feel about it?
I think it exceeded it. I was expecting it. I mean, I knew it was going to be a weird Tim Burton movie, and I'd seen the trailer and seen some of the clips. But yeah, I mean, I was not expecting like how well it was going to be made, like just like a 5-level production value. So that really blew my socks off.
Yeah, I mean, I expected something along these lines, but talking about it tonight has made me realize the heart it had, just not watching it in kind of, usually I watch these things in segments and I'm making notes and everything. And thinking about that kind of, the kind of soul of the movie was something I wasn't expecting, because all the previews that you would see back in the day were all funny and kind of just wild, and thought it would be like a pastiche thing, but it operates on a whole nother level that I think makes it a really special movie.
Yeah, I agree completely. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, clearly done with love. I mean, because you're making a film about people who could be so easily ridiculed and typically have been ridiculed over the years. And I mean, people doing ridiculous things, but so clearly done with love. And this may be like a totally bizarre connection to make, but I was just thinking about movies where people totally throw themselves into things, and if they didn't buy into it 1,000%, it would be horrible, which always makes me think of Elf, which is kind of a weird comparison,
right?
Because like Will Ferrell like totally buys into what he's doing, and if there's a hint of self-awareness to what's going on, it would be horrible. But
Right.
But it works because everybody buys in.
Yeah, this movie, as I said at the beginning, when I saw it when I was much younger and did not appreciate it at all, and just didn't get it. But then watching it this time, I absolutely loved it. Aside from just the production stuff, I thought the story was great, because to me, it's really a friendship / love story between Ed and Bela Lugosi. I mean, that's really the heart behind this whole thing. And, like we talked about, how he's comfortable. He's not, his sexual preference isn't different, but he just wants to be comfortable in women's clothes, and how, he's just looking for people that accept that. And, stuff was lost on me. And then add in just my love of the weird, that era, that 50s sci-fi. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I love going to the sci-fi drive-in theater at Hollywood Studios, which is one of my absolute favorite places to go. There's just that same kind of feel. And so all of that combined with the production and everything, I mean, it's just I can't believe that this movie was not a bigger hit. And I see totally why it was so. The critics absolutely loved it, but it's just the public didn't get it because it probably just wasn't marketed well. I mean, you're right. Everything was all comedy, but it's really a drama with some comedy in it.
Right. So the final Seinfeld reference was the movie Plan 9 from Outer Space is referenced in Seinfeld. Did you know where it's referenced, Andy?
No, I'm thinking of the love letter, but no.
In the Chinese restaurant episode, they're going to go see a screening of it.
Oh,
right.
And I can't remember if it was Jerry or if it was Larry David. One of them loves this movie, and they said, "Well, that's what we're going to go do after we eat dinner at the Chinese restaurant." Was going to go see it, and so they're panicking because they don't want to miss the screening, and they're getting stuck there waiting. So
when we were talking through it, it made me remember, because I was thinking about seeing things in theaters. One of you mentioned seeing something in a theater, and I did see Glenn or Glenda at the Carolina Theater in Durham with the mad scientist guys from Mystery Science Theater. They did Glenn or Glenda. That was there. And that was just when the former governor was in office. So that movie allowed for a great many jokes at his expense. So that was high quality. But yeah.
I have one final note. I went to the Internet Movie Car Database, which is a thing. And that is a 1940 Plymouth Deluxe that Ed Wood is driving around in.
Yeah. So, that's a good name for that.
That is a good name.
Deluxe, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's funny, we talked about, this movie being sort of very sensitive and kind-hearted, and Glenn or Glenda is kind of the same way, because it's about something that Ed Wood really felt strongly about. And you think, clearly the producer wanted it to be schlocky and exploitative, but the movie isn't. It's really this is what it's about, and it's just a normal thing, and this. So it that kind of vibe carries over.
Yeah, because I think even in this movie, the producer says something like, "I don't care how or something about the emotions of it or whatever." He's like, "Just make it fit 7 cans or something like that."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Right. Well, anything else to say about this before we put it away in the graveyard?
Pull the string. Pull the string.
Pull the string.
I think I would have. I mean, what else has Tim Burton done live action that was even you think close to this? I mean, everything's been kind of like Sweeney Todd,
Sleepy Hollow.
But I mean,
She
I would
was also
love
in
for
that.
him to go back to something more serious like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really did a
Agreed.
really, really good job with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had fun talking about it.
Yeah, it is fun talking about it. Talking about it may help me realize my feelings about it too. But yeah, that wraps up another spooky Halloween special. Hello.
Hell.
Oh. I guess, Robert, it's gonna be time to turn back to our other Touchstone movies coming up here.
We are definitely getting back to our normally scheduled programming, which again, we're not going to reveal what's coming up. We're flying
Thank
Flying
God it'll be in
blind.
color.
And I will hint that it is in color. That is accurate. And if you want to give us some suggestions, or maybe you want to guess what's coming up, you can find us at info@medfieldfilm.com and shoot us an email. Tell us what you think's coming. I've already, like I said, we've had some suggestions from people on the street. I've made some suggestions.
And what street are you walking down?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean, I live in the world, man, and the fans find me. So
I'm a man of the world.
The global neighborhood.
Well, tell those fans to go over to Apple Music or wherever and rate and subscribe.
There you
Smash
go.
that subscribe.
smash
Yeah.
that like button.
Leave a review.
Yeah,
There's some,
whatever it is.
for those of you who have left reviews, it's just fun to read them. It's just nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy's
Agreed.
always the one that gets the reviews to us whenever that one hits the Apple store or wherever podcast. Yeah. It's late. I'm tired. It's been a long day. So-
It's been a long day. We're talking about Ed Wood. Eddie, how's the new picture looking?
Well, Bella, I'm in a real bind. You see, due to some script changes, I've had to change the title of Revenge of the Moon Beasts to The Brain That Ate Cleveland. I've already printed the old movie poster, but now I need a new one. And my movie poster guy is on holiday in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, of course. So what am I supposed to do?
I've heard about this fella, Todd Naparick. He runs a shop called BidenGraphics.com. What is a .com? But they say he's the tops.
Biden, eh? How do you spell that?
How the would I know?
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bella. Let's see here. Maybe it's spelled B.
Eddie.
Oh, hi, Criswell.
Eddie, I predict that this movie will be your greatest triumph.
You don't say.
Eddie, this movie poster will be so incredible that everyone will feel compelled to see your picture. Eddie.
Gosh, you really think so?
Of course, or my name isn't the amazing Criswell.
Wow. Thanks, Criswell. Pardon me for just a moment. Say, Tor Johnson, come here for a moment, won't you? Tor, you wouldn't know how to spell bind in graphics, would you?
Oh, sure. It's Bewwwaaaaaarreeee.
That's swell. I was really struggling there. Thanks for helping me out, fella. So it's Todd Naprick at Bindin Graphics. That's BYDAND graphics.com. Thanks, everyone. You've been a big help. Now, time to slip into something a little more comfortable.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, chairman of the Walt Disney World Company and Walt Disney Company. I'm chair of Walt Disney. I own Topps Trading Cards and Bazooka Gum. I'd like to thank you for listening to my friends and their spooky Halloween special, and we look forward to sharing more glorious Touchstone movies with you soon. But please go to go.com and vote on your favorite Touchstone movie. It's a great website, go.com. You just go to go. Anyway, happy Halloween, everyone. Hello.
Proud are we of mighty Redfield, our mother dear. All your sons and daughters hail to thee, Redfield College of Technology. And while we hold your banner high, clap